we hosted a family one time. They were coming into town because they were adopting their first child, and they had to spend 2 weeks in the area before they could take her back home to Texas. And, we were able to do like this really fun welcome basket with baby stuff and just being part of people's stories and being part of a very small snippet of their lives. But I mean, they came back and told us, like, your home will always be the home that we brought home our baby to.
Aww,
and, they've come back to visit. And, those types of things and stories are things that I will always take with me. And being able to be part of people's journey like that is just something that's really powerful and special about being a host that I love.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Round 2 podcast. I am your host, Nikki Corbett, and I am thrilled to welcome my guest today, Madeleine Raiford-Holland. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Nikki. So excited that you're back in the States.
Yeah, thank you. It's awesome to see you and reconnect. So how are you doing?
Much better this week than I was last week. I shared just a little bit before I had the flu that knocked me out on my rear. But we're back thriving, not just surviving anymore.
Oh, that's always good. I know. I heard whatever's going around is absolutely brutal. So I'm glad you got on the other side of it quickly.
Yeah. Wow.
Hey, you know what? All the noise, it's so funny because, you think about like pre-COVID when, you would be like working from home and if there was any sort of new noise while you were on a call, it was like, oh no, like I hope no one heard that. Let me immediately mute myself. And then COVID happened and it was just like, there could be mayhem going on in the background and you're still like giving your presentation because
totally nobody
just
cares.
Life. Yeah.
Yeah. One good thing about COVID is that they desensitized us to all the work from home noise.
100%. There'd be like cats like walking across the screen,
I had that happen today.
Did you?
Not my cat. I was on a call with somebody and their cat walked across. I'm like, oh, well, who's this baby? And it was like, this is Olive. And I'm like, oh, well, hello, Olive.
Oh my gosh. I llove it.
Just a connection point though. And I love that piece of it because people it was an ads team of all things. And it allowed to see that they were human. And I think that's just such a beautiful thing that came out of COVID is like, we are all like in this together, like working from home. Like I got to see Olive today. Like that was such a bright spot. It wasn't a negative by any stretch of the imagination. But it was just a connection point, which I think was just such a lovely thing that came out of a really difficult time.
No, that is so true, number one. And number two, it's like, yeah, we are all human. It's like, and the majority of us do have pets. It's like, so who cares if one of them like barks or walks by? It's like, oh, what's that little fella?
Yeah, who's this? Who are we seeing today?
Yeah. But I also think like you kind of nudge the door open on a topic that I love talking about with my guests because I love hearing everybody's perspective, but it's that like relatability piece and it's that authenticity piece. And like you said, we're all human. We all have all these things going on. So I think that that's like such an important factor when we're, doing business with people, meeting people remotely, having all of these new connections that we make because of social media or whatever it is that it's like, yeah, it's like, oh, hey, it's something we can connect on.
Totally. I saw something really interesting the other day on Instagram, and it was a marketer talking about how the millennial brand is dead. And what they defined a millennial brand as were these companies that were overly curated. And so everything on their feed had this exact same color palette, exact same aesthetic, this very scripted like text or caption with it. And what they were saying is Gen Z is coming in and bringing in this authenticity piece, this behind the scenes, the raw footage, the not reshooting when you don't say something perfectly, when the horn beats in the background.
Yeah,
you're not editing that stuff out. I don't know. Can we cuss on this?
Of course, yes. Okay. It's funny because I love when I look at my my Buzzsprout and it's like the little E box is checked. I'm all,
yeah.
Like we say the F word. We say fuck on this podcast, okay?
And fucking fantastic. It's one of those things. I'm like, I never know the vibe of the show, but yeah, it's not editing that stuff out. which
Mhm.
I think is directly correlated to that
Yeah.
time. Everybody we're just so tired of things being overproduced, and we want
Yes.
to see the authentic person, the behind the scenes, and that is
Mhm.
what is producing like quality content these days looks like. And that's honestly a relief. You don't
It
have to be
is a
so perfect.
relief. It is because think about I mean, even as recent as what, like 5-ish, 6 years ago, like you were talking about those curated Instagram feeds where people were selling like preset packets. So your whole feed would have like the same vibe, all your photos would be in the same preset and the different tones and all of that. And now it's like, messy chaos is totally acceptable and preferred.
Yeah, I'm here for it. It makes it a lot
Yeah.
easier. As
I
long as
mean,
you're willing to be authentic and show up as yourself,
yeah.
you kind of let people in. I think if you're not comfortable with that, then you're probably struggling right now.
Yes, definitely. I mean, and as a remote podcaster, I'm definitely here for it because it's funny. Like, I mean, unless you actively are following me on Instagram and like seeing where I'm posting from, I always like say, like, people can kind of say, like, oh, you're somewhere different because the background is different on this episode.
Exactly. So fun times. That was a fun little tangent.
Yeah, no, that's why I said I'm like, let's just talk. It's so much more fun when I record these and it feels like it's just like I'm sitting on FaceTime with somebody versus, having a full on list of different questions and things that I want to know about because I'd rather just get to know you as for who you are and then all the other stuff that like is exciting will end up popping in.
It's refreshing as a guest as well. I'll
Yeah.
just say that.
Well, good. I'm so glad. I know I've had people ask before, like, are you going to send me a list of questions? And I'm like, oh, no,
No.
no, I'm actually not. I'm like, like that would be way too much work. It's already enough work doing this.
And yes, it's a ton of work.
After doing this for a while now, it's like the evolution of it all is so much fun to see how it goes and like the people that you talk to and kind of like whether it's like they're all in a similar industry or just kind of like who starts getting attracted to your show at different times. I always notice I have themes of people that kind of show up at the same time, and it's really, really cool.
What's your current theme? Like, where do I fit into this?
I know it is really interesting. I think that you might be at the start of a new theme. So I'm excited to talk with you more. I haven't had somebody on in real estate in quite some time. I have had handfuls of different folks who are in the real estate business, but all different sectors. So I've never had someone who is in short-term rental. So I'm really excited to learn more about you and how you got there and what you're doing.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So tell me about your background. Like, where are you originally from?
Originally, I am from South Georgia.
Okay.
So when I was middle school-ish, moved up to Virginia Beach area. High school, middle school there, went to Virginia Tech, and then ended up moving back down to South Georgia to run our family business for a while after school. And then I ended up moving to Athens, Georgia. So that's North Georgia for those of you who aren't familiar with Georgia geography.
That's funny. I've had another guest who's in Athens, Georgia before. So
Random. Who?
yeah,
It's a very small town.
her name is Valeria Brenner. She runs a startup called Thrift Ship. It makes it easier for people who are selling on Instagram for them to be able to package and ship and get their, what they're selling out to their
business.
Yeah, it's really cool. She started off like doing like thrift type sales and doing it through Instagram. And I'm like, shameless plug for you, girl. And she was the thing that she hated the most was that like, she would sell something and then she would have to DM the person and they'd send their address and then she'd have to manually copy and paste it into her, system to print out the label. And she was like, there's got to be a better way. So she created one. So yeah, I met her in the Techstars program. And so she's just a doll. She's like super sharp and I love what she's doing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I'd love to meet her.
Oh yeah. I'll totally connect you guys.
That would be so fun. Always fun to meet other female entrepreneurs.
I know.
Great how life like brings you these types of connections.
Well, see, I told you there's always a connection. There's always a connection. I love it.
So yeah, that's eventually where we started our short-term rental business was we got our first property in Athens, Georgia. Now we manage about 9 in town over there. Awesome. And it's a pretty small town. And manage in Tennessee and Florida and a couple of other markets in Georgia as well.
Cool.
So
what's your favorite thing about it?
great question. Is it bad to say the time and financial freedom it provides for my family?
Not at all. I mean, isn't that why a lot of us do some of the things we do? Because that's what we want.
Yes. So what started off as a total passion project of what I thought was going to be a side hustle and, just give us some breathing room to build something for ourselves. One, I did have a ton of fun setting up properties and really creating these elevated guest experiences, and then taking my COO hat from our government contracting days and really building out the systems and processes so I wasn't spending a ton of time in the business to actually run it. So, but it grew, and I created these systems where I wasn't having to spend a ton of time with it. And so highly profitable, something I don't have to spend a lot of time doing. And it just gives me the freedom to choose how I spend my time, which is probably my favorite piece of it.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. So what's been your least favorite part about it?
Oh, great question. I mean, you hear people's horror stories on Airbnb, which they are very few and far between, people throwing parties. But yes, it has happened.
Yeah.
Even when you do everything right, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Yeah.
You get a less than ideal guest. The one time I can think of, we had a mother, because we have a 25-year age limit. Like you have to be 25 to book our property.
Isn't that the same with hotels?
Sometimes, definitely rental cars.
Rental cars. Yeah.
So sometimes you get some flack behind that. But we had a mom book the place. She was supposed to be the one checking in. Had her college-age kid throw a rager at the house. Like $8,000 in damage. Police were called in the middle of the night.
Oh, no.
I mean, it was a horror story. I can count on less than one hand how many times that's happened. But when it does, it is not fun.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can imagine. I know it's such an interesting world because it's like, you do see, because people are so like sharing everything on social media, right? So you hear, like, I often will get videos in my algorithm where it's like, look what my Airbnb tenants left behind. And like, sometimes I'm shocked at things people leave behind. I'm like, dang.
Like drugs, guns have happened many times.
What?
I host in Georgia. There are a lot of people who just travel with them in general for self-protection. Like, they're on the side of a mountain. I guess they were worried about bears. I don't know. But they left a gun in the nightstand. I mean, this has happened more times than once.
I mean, I can totally understand having one on you. Absolutely. But leaving it behind, I feel like that's kind of like one of those things where you want to walk out of the house. You're kind of like keys, phone, wallet, gun.
You would think.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing when that happened, they were a couple of hours away before they realized it. And our general practice is to call the sheriff's office and have the sheriff's office come take positive control, and then they can pick it up from the sheriff's office.
Sure.
The sheriff's office was like 30 minutes away from the property in the opposite direction for them. We had guests checking in before they were going to be back. I don't have our cleaners or our staff like take possession of this weapon because I don't want that liability. Like
100%. Yeah.
Their suggestion was for me to hide it in a bush.
Oh my God.
So when they drove back up, they could find it. And I said, no, sir.
Yeah, I'm not going to leave a weapon in a bush that a kid or anybody could pick up and then go and do God knows what with.
We are not thinking here.
Yeah. Let's use our brains, folks. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, common sense is not common sometimes.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh. So what has been your experience as far as, there's a lot of chatter that I've seen, from different people who when Airbnb first started, and then there was like a big surge in people buying properties and having them turning them into rentals. And then, I remember the first time I went to an Airbnb, it was like so bare bones, right? It was like there was hardly like a roll of paper towels, and there was no like lotion in the bathroom or no shampoo and conditioner. And I feel like then the pendulum swung like super far the other direction, where you've got all these like tricked out houses and their Instagram walls and all these cool things and game rooms and you can all the speakers that you can plug everything into. So and then there's like the chatter of like, people are just in it for the money, and like there's horrible hosts and they leave you a list of all these chores to do. So then people were like, well, if I'm going to do chores, I'm just going to stay home. I'd rather stay in a hotel instead, where I don't have to do anything. I can just go and relax and leave. So how have you navigated all of that chaos?
Yeah. So the first situation you were describing, kind of the Wild West of Airbnb days,
Mm-hmm.
I like to call the folks who got involved then, who have not done anything to improve, I call them hobby host. And there are definitely those folks still out there. But just like any business, the industry is professionalizing. And so what you're seeing now, that pendulum swing, is people who are trying to compete on value instead of compete on price. And so they want to be able to compete with these hotels, have these amenities, have these really amazing experiences. Um, and it's quite expensive to put these in and build out these amazing,
Yeah.
mini resorts on it
Right.
with the
Right.
pickleball courts and,
Mm-hmm.
all of these things. I mean, just because it's an individual that owns it instead of a corporation, why shouldn't they be able to charge for their services?
Uh-huh.
As
Yeah.
far as like, people are just in it for the money. My thing is, there is absolutely a happy medium. And
Uh-huh.
what I do and what I coach my clients who I'm teaching how to start and run short term rental businesses is we want to have a top tier property in whatever market we choose.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's, a small town, you don't have to go pickleball court with
Right. Right.
speakers and like all of these crazy amenities. But if you're in Gatlinburg or Orlando, you absolutely do.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that is a non negotiable is to create an elevated guest experience.
Uh-huh.
How do you like to travel? And
Yeah.
who is your guest avatar? Who
Uh-huh.
are you catering to and marketing to in your business?
Yeah.
And what are they looking for in
Mm-hmm.
this? Like, I am a big one on no checkout chores because I sure as heck don't want to do checkout chores when I'm doing it.
Right.
You're already paying a cleaning fee most
Yeah.
of the time. So
Yeah.
you don't have to strip beds. You don't have to clean the kitchen. You don't have to mop floor. You don't have to do any of that when you stay at my property. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm big on Airbnb hosts, like matching certain hospitality standards because as much as they don't like to admit that hotels are competition, they absolutely are in
100%.
these markets.
Yeah.
So it all kind of goes back to the hobby hosts who are not treating it like a business.
Mm-hmm.
That gives the folks that are treating it like a business, they kind of get looped in.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean it is unfortunate because yeah, I mean I look back and I'm like I have no problem. Like I stayed at an Airbnb in England and she was like, "Hey," I was like, "Is there anything you want me to do before I check out, like turning off the heater or whatever because it was like
Right.
30 degrees, right?" And she was like, "No," she's like, "I'll just put any towels that you used in the shower." She's like, "And if you have time, turn the dishwasher on." And I was like, "Okay, I can totally do that. Like that's easy,
Right.
like yeah.
Like, please, that is one thing I ask typically is if you have dirty dishes, can you just start the dishwasher? Because my cleaners would much rather just unload when they
Well,
get
yeah,
there.
and sometimes dishwashers can take like 3 or 4 hours and like your cleaners probably isn't going to
Totally.
take 4 hours to clean the house or the apartment or whatever the
No.
unit is. Yeah. Yeah.
That is one thing that and most hotels also don't have a kitchen.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
that's an amenity. Like if you're using the kitchen, you're not getting that at a hotel, just start the dishwasher.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
totally.
there's no need to strip beds. There's no need to do the
Right.
rest of it. That's where I draw
Right.
the line. I'm like, I don't do laundry at home. I don't change linens at home. Like, I sure as heck am not doing it at this Airbnb.
Yeah, it's like I'm not going to pay you and then have to do chores that,
Right.
I like yeah, it's like I'd rather stay at a
Rather not.
hotel if I'm going to be asked to do those things.
Totally.
So you mentioned teaching people, and that's like super exciting. obviously,
Mhm.
that you've taken this to another level, right? You're like, okay, this is working for us. Now, how can we teach people how to do this? So tell me how that evolved and why.
Yeah. So when we first got started in this, it was going to be this side hustle. We started from like a place of something's got to give. We have
Mm-hmm.
these golden handcuffs and we're tired of making other people a ton of money. We want to build something for ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so we said, all right, we want to get into real estate, no long-term rentals, no thank
Mm-hmm.
you, cash flow isn't there. So we started this first property and it was so wildly successful that we opened 5 more in the next 6 months.
Okay.
And so when you scale like that
Mm-hmm.
quickly,
Yeah, that's really fast.
people start noticing and
Mm-hmm.
start asking to take you out for coffee
Oh, okay.
without your
Okay.
notice. You get what I'm
Uh-huh.
saying? Like, can I take
Yeah.
you out to coffee and pick your brain? Can we talk?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm still working as a COO. I'm
Yeah.
growing this portfolio. Like, I love you. Like, I want to invest in your success, but you need a heck of a lot more help than I can give you for coffee.
Right. Sure.
So
Sure.
in an effort to be able to pass on the great knowledge that I had learned in my journey, I
Mm-hmm.
started compiling this in like an online course structure. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I've got to give some people a place to go
Yeah, of
because
course.
I can't keep doing coffee dates. So
Well, totally. And then also it's like starting to get paid for your knowledge, right? Like,
totally.
and when you have it, I mean, it's not like it was just one or two people that had asked you. I mean, I imagine you got to a point where you're like, okay, like I clearly am doing something right because it's obviously benefiting me, but other people are noticing enough that they're now asking for my time. So, number one, why don't I organize this so I have it all dialed out? But then I can just be like, here it is on my website.
Yes, here you go. So but within that, and part of my frustration and part of my journey was I had spent tens of thousands of dollars on my own education.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really frustrated because one, a lot of these gurus were sharing outdated information, but
Yeah.
two, it was a lot of really generalized things that I had
Mm-hmm.
to apply down to my specific situation, which is challenging in the real estate space.
Uh-huh.
It is so nuanced to somebody's budget, what like analyzing a specific property of will this work or will it not work, like
Mm-hmm.
regulations in different areas. Like real estate and specifically short-term rental is so nuanced that I didn't want to contribute to the bigger problem with just
Yeah.
having a self-directed course with a lot of information that people still may or may not have confidence in their decisions.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to a point where I was just saying people are more successful when they have a coach
Mm-hmm.
holding them accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ultimately, after I created that self directed course, created this mentorship program that gave people one on one access to get out of analysis paralysis, have the
Mm-hmm.
confidence
Mm-hmm.
to make that investment because there was an experienced investor on the other side running the numbers with them,
Mm-hmm.
and then showing them how to physically set up a property that was going to be successful, that strikes that happy medium between an elevated guest experience and not going
Yeah.
crazy,
Mm-hmm.
so they can still be profitable, and then setting up the digital aspect of it with those systems, processes, automations, so they
Mm-hmm.
could actually have the time freedom like I had,
Yeah.
because that took a lot of trial and error figuring out how to build out the system to create the time so I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't just creating another job for myself.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's really, and also too, I imagine anybody who's coming and wanting to learn from you, they're all coming with like a different level of experience, whether
Totally.
they've been a renter their whole lives, or whether they've bought multiple homes for themselves to live in, or, knowing anything about real estate at all from, basic terms, right? Like real estate 101, but then, or to knowing like a lot more or nothing at all, even so.
0 to hero, wherever you are
Yeah.
to where you want to be. Like every person in our program starts with a roadmap call to where we figure that stuff out. It is like, okay, I've invested in long term rentals for years, but I want to figure out how to make them short term rentals. Great. We can work with that. So let's audit and analyze all of your long terms to see if they would be successful as a short term and start checking off the list of what we're doing. Or, like, I have never purchased a property before in my life. I have no idea how to find the money, finance it, or underwrite a deal. Okay. How much cash do we have on hand? Where do you live? Let's start narrowing down markets. Let's actually go through and help you take all of this big picture stuff, apply it to your situation, narrow in on a market, know what houses and what kind of property is going to be successful there, and let's start running some numbers and buying a property. So wherever somebody is in that, we specialize in figuring out where they are, where they want to be, and giving them the roadmap to get there.
Here's a question that I'm curious about, because as you know, I go out and I travel a lot, and I'm always using Airbnb to kind of like search for different properties. But then I do sometimes, depending on what the owner's information that they give on Airbnb, I will go and look up and see if they have a website. Because
1000%.
yeah, because I feel like the Airbnb, like I got really hosed over the summer with Airbnb fees that I think, you know, when I was booking, it was my first time ever booking an Airbnb, because I'm like unabashedly a hotel girl. I love a robe. I love room service coffee. And also being a solo traveler, I do love the safety of being in a hotel, just from knowing that, like, you know, the maid at some point is going to come into my room, whether I have the little door hand do not disturb on, you know, or not. And if anything, God forbid, whatever happened to me, at least, like, you know, there's someone
Somebody's
around.
gonna find me.
Yeah. So anyway, it was my first time ever actually like renting an Airbnb. I've certainly stayed in them, but I've never been like the direct person to book it. So anyway, I think when I was booking it, I just was excited and, you know, not paying close enough attention and to like the breakdown of fees. And then when it got towards the end and I actually got the final bill, because I had rented it for 5 weeks, and I saw the Airbnb fees and then I saw the taxes, and I was like, this is insane. And it ended up more, I think that I saw the fee when I booked, and I didn't realize it said like in the small print, like without taxes and fees. So I was just thinking that original number. So, I mean, at that point it was too late, you know, I was past the point of no return. But then the next one that I went to, I noticed like, oh, I wonder if they have their own website, and they did. So
Yes.
is that a practice you all employ as well?
Oh, 1000%. So regardless of what industry you're in as a business owner, there is always a benefit to owning your audience versus renting your audience. I give the example of, you know, Instagram and Facebook is a rented audience because Zuckerberg and friends can tweak an algorithm and you may have no control over when your stuff shows up, versus an email list that you can ping your people at any point. So think of Airbnb and Vrbo as rented audience versus an owned audience on your own website. So I teach my clients from day one, property number one, you have got to have a way to start owning your own book of business with a direct booking website. And that's what people start with from day one. Absolutely something I do. A tip for a traveler. So all of my properties in our title, it might be like 3-bedroom luxe near downtown by MHM Luxury Properties. Whenever you see somebody do that, that is your cue to look up that business, because they are trying to tell you, like, I'm a small business, book directly, please. Like, we want to host you. Because, I mean, full disclosure, hosts hate those fees as much as you guys do, because typically it's 13 to 15% on top of what we're getting paid out. And so we have people all the time like, do you offer a discount? And it's like, I'm already like making less. Like, I hate that you're getting charged that much money from Airbnb, but I can only control what my nightly rate is. And we typically try and cue people in a way that won't get them in trouble or get us in trouble, because Airbnb will ping us. So don't reach out like in the app, because they monitor the messages and they'll flag our account. But typically, as a host, if you're looking to get in the short-term rental business, like, there's something called a rate multiplier where the host can actually make up some of those fees and the guests still get a discount off of Airbnb and save everybody some money.
Okay. Yeah, that's it's funny because actually when I was in Belfast, actually when you and I first connected,
Yeah.
I had looked through Airbnb, and then now I'm like, okay, Airbnb is a search engine, and so that's how I kind of basically use it.
Right.
And then I went and I found the name of the company, and they had their own website, and I was grateful, and so were they, because what ended up happening was I had booked it for 4 nights, and then I decided to only stay for 3, and I figured that out like the day I got there, because I was like, I had planned an adventure and it got canceled. So I was like, okay, well, I don't need to stay that extra day to do this now that I'm not doing it anymore. So I emailed them and I was like, hey, is there any way I could get this last night refunded? I'm sorry, like I'm going to end up leaving a day early, knowing that I might not, but I also was like, doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah.
And she wrote me back and she was like, oh my gosh, she's like, since you booked directly, like, yeah, no problem, we'll refund you the last night. And I was like,
wow,
thank you.
That was generous.
Yeah, I was like, thank you so much. I think it was because it was like the second I literally got there. Like it wasn't like the day before, but I still was like, oh, okay, there's so many more benefits to booking directly with somebody and having that like direct line on WhatsApp or text message versus
1000%,
through the app.
Small business owners always appreciate you booking directly, because you guys pay 13 to 15. We pay 3 to 4% out of our payout too. So that's close to 20% of fees that they're getting on that stay.
Yeah, that's tough. Yeah, I think so many people like don't recognize that either, and it's too bad. Because
it really is. But hear it now, folks. If you see by the business name, go look them up and book directly.
No, that's such a great tip. If there's always a business name, like that's like, I mean, like I told you, I've already started using it as a search engine, but that's like such a great tip. It's like, hey, if it's obviously a business name, it's not like hosted by Nikki and Madeleine. It's like,
right.
Yeah.
Well, mine will still say hosted by Madeleine, but in my title, it has our business name, and we put that business name so many places. Or if you see their social media handle, that's another cue that they're giving you. Like, go look them up on social media, because they can't talk freely in the app.
Right.
If you ask them, like, do you have a direct booking website? They're going to be like, we prefer to keep communication on the platform. No, they don't. Airbnb has got them by the throat.
Right.
Speaking the party line. They would rather not. Go look them up on social media. Go look them up on their website and try and book directly.
No, that's, okay. Great tips. So you mentioned like, obviously like the time freedom and the financial freedom that comes along with this, but like, what else is it that like, that drives you? What is it that you said fun at the very beginning? What else is it that like makes you like excited to get up and do this work every day?
Yeah. So now primarily my focus is on helping other families do that. I have the systems processes. I've got a team in place who's doing the actual hosting part of my business. But like my mom, like bless her, has always said that I am a pioneer. I'm not a settler. And there's enough pioneering in the short-term rental business with acquiring new properties and setting up new spaces that really just excites me every time I do it. So I love finding a good real estate deal. I love designing a space and like really seeing it come to life. I love getting it set up for the first time for guests and getting those photos back, getting it online. And after that point, I'm like, I turn it over to the team and say, have fun. Like, let me know if you need me. But that's the beauty of this business, is you can find what you love about it and outsource the rest. Like, there is no need to continue to do something in your business that you don't really enjoy. Like, when I was first starting off, I mean, I've been a host for almost 4 years now. And, those guest interactions were really fun at the beginning. And I enjoyed the actual hosting part. At the risk of sounding like I don't enjoy, like there are certain aspects that I enjoy, but I can only recommend so many dinner places.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like each guest seems to have the same questions, and that's part of the settling aspect of it. It's like, I'm thrilled for you and thrilled for this trip. Like, I've put together a travel guide and my team is going to send that over to you. Because that's not the part that I enjoy about hosting anymore.
Sure.
It was new and fun and exciting, and I loved like getting to know all of my guests from day one across 16 properties. Now I'm like, we've built out all of this. We want you to have an amazing experience, but I don't want to break up dinner with my kids to tell you.
Well, and it's a lot of redundancy too, right? I mean, it's
Totally.
like if you're answering the same 5 questions every 3 days times 16, like you're kind of like, oh my God, sound like a broken record.
Precisely. And so
Yeah.
that's why I'm like, there are certain aspects of hosting that I absolutely love. Getting the property set up, really curating the
Hmm.
spaces and doing all of that. But I, after 4 years with this many properties, like my team handles the guest interaction piece.
Yeah. No, and honestly, like as a guest, like my friend and I were traveling in Greece and we were on the island of Crete and we got this charming little apartment in this downtown area of like the biggest city on the island. And there was this like booklet that they had created and left on the kitchen table. And so, she was getting ready one night. So I'm flipping through it and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, there's a bar here that was like built in the 1700s. And she's like, oh my God, let's go, And I
Let's
was like,
go.
this is so cool because you don't always find, I mean, I always say like whenever you're traveling somewhere, it's like it's impossible to see and eat everything that anybody who lives there or who has been there would recommend.
Totally.
So, and you're not always going to find things. So it's like so nice when a host does leave some information behind and then you can kind of go, oh, okay. Oh, I did read about that place. So maybe it is good because now the host is saying, hey, you should go here. It's cool.
And we have a physical welcome book that does that. We have curated welcome gifts. We have an app that gives you our recommendations. Like that's the fun part that I love setting up for the first time for a property. And part of the stuff that I enjoy, like absolutely curating and creating one time, and then like providing that for my team, like going on. I mean, there have been some beautiful like stories. Um, we hosted a family one time. They were coming into town because they were adopting their first child, and they had to spend 2 weeks in the area um, for before they could take her back home to Texas. And we were able to do like this really fun welcome basket with baby stuff and just being part of people's stories and being part of a very small snippet of their lives. But I mean, they came back and told us, like, your home will always be the home that we brought home our baby to. And, they've come back to visit. And, those types of things and stories are things that I will always take with me. And being able to be part of people's journey like that is just something that's really powerful and special
Yeah.
about being a host
Hmm.
that I love.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And that's so sweet. What a great story.
And I mean, flip side, we host people who are visiting their parents in hospice. I mean,
Yeah.
excuse me,
Bless you.
all spectrums of that. And then
Hmm.
meeting people where they are, being human, as
Hmm.
we talked about in the very first few minutes of that, and
Yeah.
realizing that we all are just trying to do our best and
Hmm.
being there for people and providing a great experience for the small amount of time that they're with us is
Yeah.
something that brings a lot of joy.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. I mean, because you don't sometimes think about that, right? You don't think like, oh, like someone's here because of this reason or someone's here because of that reason. And I'm sure like there's
You
plenty of
just
people
never
that stay
know.
at hotels like for a number of reasons. And it's not like they're checking in, being like, oh, hey, by the way, this is like a really shitty time in my life. Or by the way, this is the most joyous time of my life.
And you may never know, and which is why it's so
Exactly.
important to always treat people with kindness and respect. And,
Absolutely.
coming into this business, understanding it is a hospitality business, you are like providing a service for people and coming at it with that perspective.
Hmm.
You talked about the people who are just in it for the money. Like,
Hmm.
you can't lose the human element of it.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad that you said it like that because that is like so true and it goes back to like that, authenticity piece of just, wanting to feel like people care. I mean, really, right? It's wanting to feel like someone gives a shit about you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And never losing sight of that, no matter how many properties you get, is always so important. And my team, one of my favorite books about hospitality in general is called Unreasonable Hospitality. I don't know if you've read it before. It's good across spectrums of things, but it's giving your team and empowering your team to make something right for people and go above and beyond. And I think just in the customer service space, like recognizing that we're human, people have bad days, they might be rude, but what can we do for them to leave us better than we found them, essentially. Like, how can we make their life more positive by interacting with us and our brand?
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. That reminds me of, I can't remember the name of the book, but it's about the Ritz-Carlton brand and
Yes.
basically how they empower all of their employees. They have like a certain budget where it's like if a guest walks up to any employee on the property and says like, hey, this thing is going wrong or this is going wrong, that employee has the ability to be like, oh, well, like, let me make it right.
I think it's like $2,000.
It's something significant. I know that I remember reading that and being like, holy crap, this is
Oh, that
amazing.
recently too. Their PR people
Yeah.
must be doing something in the
Yeah.
algorithm right now, because I saw that.
Oh, that's so funny. No, my old boss at my last company had us read that book. And I just remember that was like my biggest takeaway about it. And I thought, because I thought for a number of reasons. One, how great for the guests to be able to walk up to someone and have that person be able to solve their problem, right? But then it empowers your employees to be solution oriented. It
Yes.
empowers them to feel like they have like some level of authority and like, oh, well, I can make this right for this guest. I don't have to go, oh, well, let me go find my manager or let me go find the night duty person or the highest level person that hangs out at this property. Like to have them feel like, hey, like I can solve your problem for you, even though today's my 5th day and I'm a brand new whatever.
I can fix it. Like, how can I
Mm-hmm.
help? Like,
Yeah.
that phrasing and that mentality is
Mm-hmm.
just leaps and bounds differently. And for example, this is a real life last night happened. We had a guest book at the last minute for a property that was ready, but we had noted to our cleaning staff that we were out of body wash. They were going by today to replace it, but the guest was checking in last night. And so my team member who was on staff, they're like, hey, should we ask our cleaner to go tonight before they get there? Like, what should we do for this body wash situation? I'm like, don't mess with the cleaner. It's 9 o'clock at night. Like, it's fine. So I was like, we can just DoorDash a bottle of body wash over there. Not a big deal. It'll be there waiting on the guest. So whenever I have to send something like that, I always throw in some candy. Like,
Oh, that's nice.
random, like, like
Uh-huh.
we're gonna throw in some gummy bears tonight.
Yeah, yeah.
So we did a bottle of body wash and some gummy bears. You know what the guest said? He was like, I got here. I've been driving for 5 hours. Thank you
Oh,
so much for the gummy bears. They were my favorite.
oh, that's so cool.
But it's like a random
Yeah.
$2 thing of gummy bears.
Right, right.
Could have not liked them. Could whatever. It's like it cost me what, $2, and it
Yeah.
made this guy's night.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
thinking
it's
about the
something that
little
they'll
things.
remember, right? I mean, remember that story? I'm sure you do because it's one of the tales as old as time at this point where it's like, Nordstrom, they made their name by taking anything back because they knew that one bad review goes so much further than like one good review because people are so much less likely to talk about the good than they are the bad.
Totally.
But people remember the good. And I think that that's what's like so important. It's like that guy is now going to remember that action that, took you maybe 90 seconds in total between the whole thing and cost you $2. But now next time he's in your area or looks up your website and sees like, oh, they have properties in all these different states, I'll go stay at another one.
Exactly. And that is one of the biggest compliments that I get all the time is guests
Mm-hmm.
who've stayed with us calling and saying, hey, have you opened a property here yet? Because I
Mm-hmm.
only want to stay with you.
Oh,
Like,
I love
that
that.
is the biggest compliment and win in this business.
Uh-huh. Well, it's funny.
Is
So one of the things I was going to ask you next was like, what kind of impact is it that you are wanting to leave? Like, what is like your, that kind of drives you even deeper on like a longer term level? And I kind of feel like that might be it.
yeah, having people leave better than when they showed up. Like the ripple effect that you can have on people's lives. It's impactful. I mean, like I said, you never know why they're coming to town, why they're coming to stay. We get a lot of parents who are coming to visit their kids in college in Athens, and it's you never know what they came in with. All you can do is make sure that they're leaving in a better place than when they got there.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Thank you for sharing all of this knowledge. I'm really
Absolutely.
excited about learning more. I'm definitely in the market to buy an investment property this year.
Oh,
So
how exciting.
yes, so I
We'd
know
love to
that you
help.
and I know you and I crossed paths for more than one reason. So
Yes.
let everybody know what your website is, how they can get in touch.
Yes, you can find me. My website is madeleinerayfordholland.com. And if you're not watching this, my name Madeline has an extra E in it. So Madeleine, Rayford Holland. My Instagram is at Madeleine Rayford Holland. So is my LinkedIn. So you can find me any of those places. The majority of my content and education is on Instagram. So I would love to connect with you guys there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I loved chatting with you. And everybody, thank you for listening, for watching. And as always, please feel free to share, like, comment, subscribe, leave a review. Those help so much. And we will talk to you next week.